20 immensely powerful Street Fighter characters with their dark backstories explored. The Street Fighter franchise, developed by Capcom, is a franchise that focuses on fighting video and arcade games. They have been around since 1987 and are considered cult classics. Street Fighter has had numerous installments into the series after its initial release, with the most popular one being Street Fighter 2 in 1991. In 2022, the franchise is still going strong, with a new game speculated to be on the horizon, while the esports scene for the genre keeps rising in both popularity and the level of competition. Street Fighter features a plethora of characters in its roster to choose from. While the original roster was relatively small and quite composed, over the years the franchise has exposed its audience to so many new characters. All the newly introduced characters have been tremendously good, ranging from their artwork, their body language, their lore in the storyline, the voice acting, and their fighting styles. Capcom has truly created a masterpiece over the years, and Street Fighter continues to be at the top of its genre. With a total of 114 playable characters across all of the games and spin-offs, you are to expect some masterful character creation work to be put on display when talking about Street Fighter. The team behind the series is responsible for characters like Ryu and Bison, who have created massive waves in the character creation department, as they are the characters responsible for the origin of certain stereotypes. For example, if in a fighting game a character uses a jumping uppercut, everyone would assume that they are paying homage to Ryu from Street Fighter only because it's iconic. Now, without putting the franchise on too much of a high horse, let us discuss 20 of the extremely interesting characters present in the Street Fighter roster. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
I think not!
M. Bison, also known as Vega in the Japanese translation, is the primary antagonist wreaking havoc in the Street Fighter franchise. He is the founding commander of Shadalu, and his leadership style is to enforce his will through sheer dominance and abuse of power. He is involved in a tremendous amount of illegal and immoral activities that range from illicit human experimentation and terrorism to narcotics trafficking and the sale of weapons. Bison does not showcase any regard for human life and treats all his subordinates as mere lapdogs who are supposed to serve him with their undying loyalty, despite his leadership style being the worst dictatorship that one can fathom. Bison is one of the most formidable and feared foes in the Street Fighter universe. His merciless and destructive fighting style only pays homage to his manipulation of the dark force known as Psycho Power. Before his master's murder, which was also orchestrated by Bison, his master was known to be the only person who could control Psycho Power at his will. The former sole user of Psycho Power passed down the power only to 3 of his pupils, which included Bison. As the name suggests, Psycho Power is seen as an evil or psychotic power which exists as the negative opposite of Soul Power. Psycho Power thrives on other people's hatred, rage, and fear. Similar to the Satsui, No-Hado, and the Soul Power, Psycho Power is not a form of energy that is intrinsically bad. Instead, it is an alternative method of pushing one's boundaries, and categorizing it as such makes it more challenging to conceal its adverse effects entirely. M. Bison is arguably one of the most known and unforgettable bosses in fighting games history. His unrivaled nasty grin, excessively arrogant demeanor, and recognizable crimson costume and cape are unparalleled, and his stereotypical dictatoresque look aids in highlighting his personality. His combat style is also very well defined, and it has substantially changed and developed through the sequels and his continuous appearances. Throughout the storyline, M. Bison is portrayed to be the biggest obstacle that the heroes have to overcome. He leads his organization to cause chaos and pursue his self-interests regardless of the cost. Bison's thirst for power has always allowed him to be on top, be it through extremely evil or even deceitful ways. He is a malevolent and devious character who is technically very persuasive, but his persuasion methods consist of threatening and dominating. Through the enticing promise of not killing the person, Bison has gained the likes of Vega, Balrog, Sagat, Julie, Junie, Kami, and Birdie as allies, working under his dominion in whatever way he pleases.
So it's you.
Akuma. The secondary antagonist character in the Street Fighter series is Akuma, who is also referred to as Goki in the Japanese language. He battles the protagonistic forces and is an exceptionally formidable warrior. But he is never the primary antagonist who stirs up trouble everywhere he goes. Instead, he merely behaves in a manner that hints at him being an evil force that constitutes a constant threat to everyone's lives. Akuma is the younger brother of Goken and the second pupil of Gotetsu. He is a powerful, cruel warrior who is driven to discover the Satsui no Hado's actual bounds. He has unmatched combat skills and employs moves like Shungoku Satsu to destroy his adversaries completely. Despite having the appearance of a cold-blooded, merciless killer, Akuma upholds moral principles and won't harm anybody who isn't a danger to him. If he thinks the individuals challenging him are worthless or have room to improve, he grants them another chance. He only engages in combat with those he considers to be on par with or superior to him. Although Akuma killed his master and believed he had also killed his sibling Goken, he did it in the heat of battle. Therefore, it might be argued that he did not transgress his moral code. Akuma is ruthless, soulless, and ice-cold. He seldom smiles or displays any other feelings besides pure wrath. He revels in the fact that he has mostly abandoned his morals to entirely focus on developing his fighting skills by participating in battle with and defeating powerful opponents. Akuma enjoys testing himself against worthy opponents while he trains hard, fighting anybody attempting to obstruct him. He hasn't yet faced an adversary who could stand up to his true strength. Therefore, he rarely taps into his maximum potential. Since Akuma believes that his ways of being ruthless and using uncontrolled devastating power are how his fighting style was supposed to be utilized from the very beginning, he detests Goken for disregarding their powerful darker elements and considers him to be mentally weak, even if he can be physically powerful. The Japanese word Akuma means devil or demon. The word ten is written in kanji on the back of his tunic. It can also imply beyond human, sky, or heaven. Shin Akuma, Cyber Akuma, and Oni Akuma are a handful of the most potent variations of Akuma that exist outside his normal form. Oro. Oro is a fascinating old hermit who has lived quite a long life, to be accurate, around 140 years. Thanks to his unique abilities. He dwells deep within a cave and shares his proximity in the Amazon jungle with a variety of creatures, which includes a turtle and a dog. Oro was a martial arts master in Japan during his younger years. He may possibly be a Japanese ninja's descendant according to rumors, but it is not confirmed. In the early 1900s, he and a companion emigrated to Brazil. Because things weren't going well for him in Brazil, he eventually started isolating himself. He devoted much of his time to mastering senjutsu, a kind of martial art derived from Taoist mythology's immortal mountain hermits. Oro ascended into becoming a maestro of the technique over time. One day, restless because he was bored, Oro decided to search for a student deserving of receiving his teachings about his fighting style. He decided to compete in the Third World Warrior competition and boarded multiple aircrafts by situating himself on top of the planes to fly to various destinations. He came across Ryu after dispatching several opponents. Following Ryu's defeat at his hands, Oro withdrew from the competition and declared Ryu to be a prospective successor. Later, Oro managed to track down Ryu and started observing and helping the younger warrior practice covertly so as to ensure that he was not outed. Ibuki had to defeat Oro once to pass a graduation examination from ninja school. Following this, Ibuki challenged Oro, which disappointed him because he had assumed she was asking him out on a date, which was an enticing offer for him. Oro may not be the most attractive character at first glance, but when given a chance, one would realize that he is an exceptionally creative fighting game character. Even with his simple, everyday dynamic movements, Oro's animations are extremely captivating and endearing. The mannerisms he portrays, his specials, and his super moves are all exceptionally well made. After all, he is a genuine martial arts expert on display. Oro has an innately underappreciated design as he does not follow traditional cool-looking design methods. Still, when he engages in combat, especially in the hands of a talented player, he makes a statement. Oro has various humorous aspects about him in addition to his bizarre appearance and motions. Oro is one of, if not the oldest character in the franchise. He is a formidable fighter who acts as a comic relief to an otherwise serious, world-threatening storyline. Fun fact, Oro is shown to use only one hand during his battles, as he believes he would be too strong for his opponents if he starts using both his hands, which is, for lack of a better word, truly badass. Ryu's life started as an orphan, and he had no recollection of his young years as a child, and neither did he ever know anything about his biological parents. Eventually, Goken, Akuma's elder brother, adopted Ryu and raised him in his dojo, which was situated in a remote location away from the hustle of the city. During his life at the dojo under the tutelage of Goken, Ryu received rigorous martial arts training and practiced to reach perfect body conditioning. As a few years passed, Goken accepted another martial arts aspirant as his pupil. This pupil was the son of Goken's best friend, and his name was Ken Masters. Goken began instructing the two simultaneously, and the two practiced together every day. They quickly became very close friends and had a mutually respectful relationship. Even after all this time, Ryu still viewed Goken as his father figure and regarded Ken as his best friend and adopted brother. Ryu left the dojo when he turned 23, as Goken believed that Ryu's training was finished, although he had much to learn to become a martial arts master. Ryu was ready to venture out and carve his own path and learn from outside experiences, and Goken had trained his mind to do just that. Ryu planned to set out to compete against the finest and most formidable fighters in the world, to test and perfect his fighting capabilities and hone his skills. He entered the First World War tournament, and after defeating all his opponents, Ryu finally faced Sagat. Upon their encounter, Sagat nearly defeated Ryu. Due to his fierce fixation on winning his battles, Ryu allowed the Satsui no Hado to overcome him, and in a flurry of dangerously lethal blows, Ryu defeated Sagat after the latter prematurely assumed his victory. Sagat survived but swore revenge on Ryu at this embarrassing defeat. Ryu learned of the fact that his master Goken had been killed at their dojo at the hands of Akuma. Following this, he set out to find him and eventually confronted him on a remote island known as Gokentao. Akuma saw Ryu's potential, and instead of killing the young fighter, he displayed his power by shattering the island below them and showed Ryu the untapped potential he had in him. This interaction left Ryu a shell of himself for the upcoming years as he lost his confidence and pondered over Akuma's words. As his adventures moved forward, he encountered the likes of Bison and Seth. With the help of his friends and his determination and perseverance, Ryu stuck close to his morals and overcame the various obstacles his life threw at him. Eventually, Ryu came across Goken, who explained how he survived his battle with Akuma. He describes the power of nothingness to Ryu, who uses it to conceal Ryu's Satsui no Hado within him.
It is God's will. Time to return to harmony.
Gill, the head of the Illuminati, a mysterious and uncanny organization that highly resembles a cult. Gill is one of the most odd-looking personalities in the Street Fighter franchise. Gill has a massive god complex and considers himself to be above others simply at first glance. Although he was not a founding member, he now leads the organization, the Illuminati, who have controlled world affairs for more than 2,000 years and are committed to implementing their methods of what they believe is humanity's rescue and the development of a new utopia. Gill's strength and speed were genetically modified by the Illuminati while he was younger, and they attempted to make him even stronger than Akuma, and they were even mildly successful in doing so. In a rigorous close-quarters combat training course, Gill outperformed hundreds of other upgraded combatants and even his own envious brother, Yurien, to come out on top. To discover people capable of repopulating humankind after the end of the planet, Gill arranged the Third World Warrior Tournament with the help of his devoted assistant, Colin. According to the Illuminati lore in the Street Fighter franchise, the former Illuminati leader's spirit will reanimate and resurrect itself into the body of a new individual after death. Gill was the most recent manifestation of the Emperor as a direct correlation to their unique training regimen. Hence, Gill was chosen to lead the Illuminati at the age of 22. Due to his mental instability, Yurien was passed over as a candidate for Gill, and he ended up becoming Gill's vice president instead. Succumbing to his jealousy, Yurien eventually challenged Gill for the position of president, and after a hard-fought battle, Yurien won. Yurien then became the president, but Gill was later promoted to the position of emperor and messiah, rather than becoming the vice president. Under the leadership of Gill, the Illuminati continued to prosper and gained both authority and assets. During the Third World War tournament, Gill was murdered by Akuma, who utilized the Son Goku Satsu on the former. But unbeknownst to Akuma, Gill possessed the ability to resurrect himself, and as soon as Akuma walked away, Gill did exactly that and shrugged his death off. One of the hardest bosses ever, Gill defeats the player with a certain elegance that only makes one admire him, unlike many unjust and unfair bosses in fighting games. Gill's movements and fighting style proudly display the Capcom artist's command over and understanding of the human body in terms of moveset and animation. In a manner of high praise, we believe the 2D animation in Gill is some of the greatest that has ever been seen in a 2D fighting game.
Your state is now useless. Witness the power of the Kanten engine. This is the power of the king!
Seth, often known as the Puppet Master, is the head of Shadalu's SIN weapons section. Advanced technology has been used to modify his body to make him a feared combatant. Seth is the 15th of 26 augmented creatures who have developed a lethal martial arts system using information gathered by studying various warriors from around the world. Because of his capability to understand feelings and inculcate humanity in his personality, Seth asserted that he is superior to the rest of the experiments, who are mere puppets or machines. Seth intended to assume control of Shadalu's surviving members through SIN after Bison's apparent demise during the events of Street Fighter II. During his plan of overtaking Shadalu, Seth accepted Juri's offer to work for him after she approached him. Seth sponsored the subsequent World Warrior Tournament in an attempt to get hold of and bait Ryu so that they could finish the BLECE project. Seth soon engaged Bison in a fight after discovering that Bison had survived his apparent death. Seth was vanquished by Bison, who then informed him that everything had transpired as planned. Even Juri approached Seth after his defeat and mentioned how she thought he would be a tougher challenge for Bison, which he failed to become before crushing his tandem engine. Seth's personality is severely impacted in Street Fighter V as a result of grave systematic mistakes that happened during the merging of his brain with Doll Unit Zero's body. Seth exhibits extreme psychotic symptoms. He gets so fixated on finding M. Bison that he slips into hallucinations, mistaking Falke and Ed for M. Bison during their fights. Seth has savagery and cynicism to match his intelligence, which is on par with that of M. Bison. Seth, unlike M. Bison, is often quite composed and cool, although displaying a fair amount of hubris, which is sometimes demonstrated by his obnoxious propensity to cackle and chuckle at his opponents after utilizing his strong techniques. Seth has a profound understanding of the philosophy of human nature, as well as the aspirations of finding meaning and self-awareness. This peculiar quality suggests that Seth wants to break free from his role as M. Bison's replacement shell and become his own independent entity. It also goes hand in hand with his insatiable desire for power. He exhibits no morals or regard for life, and he views individuals mainly for their use. Yet his quest for power and his philosophical endeavors are unbalanced, neutral affairs.
Let's see you beat them!
Sagat, a towering 7 feet 5 inches behemoth weighing around 240 to 330 pounds, or about 110 to 150 kgs, Sagat is revered as the king of god of Muay Thai. His progression has been apparent since he was a youngster. When he reached his teenage years and started maturing, he turned into a national hero for the people of Thailand, after winning a tournament as a youth and gaining the title, as mentioned earlier. Go Hibiki, whom one may recognize as Dan's father, was also a formidable Muay Thai combatant, and so he challenged Sagat for his title but was defeated after putting up a valiant effort. The fight between the two was brutal, and during the battle Sagat sustained enough injuries on his right eye that he lost all functionality through it, but eventually Hibiki was killed and Sagat was triumphant. Sagat was the top dog during the first World Warrior Tournament. He was unreachable and considered unbeatable. Ryu was the only fighter who was able to defeat all other opponents and eventually gained the right to challenge Sagat. The two engaged in a bone-crushing battle, with Sagat gaining the upper hand initially. When Ryu's body started feeling the taste of defeat, his mind was not ready to give up and was determined to win. So Ryu allowed the Satsui no Hado to overwhelm his body, and the fight was soon over as Ryu executed the Metsu Shoryuken, which put a massive scar on Sagat's body. This embarrassing defeat made Sagat swear revenge on Ryu eventually. Afterwards, Sagat joined Shadalu as he was made a welcoming offer from M. Bison, who admired Sagat's strength and tenacity. The offer was enticing for Sagat as he was also promised assistance in finding Ryu and exacting his revenge. After joining, Sagat acted as a personal bodyguard for Bison and was considered part of the dreaded 4 Heavenly Kings of Shadalu. Eventually, Sagat gained insight into what it meant to be a true warrior and realized the error in his way of revenge, which was bound by his feeling of hatred. He realized how Bison was only working for his personal goals without being noble in any way. Upon being given a chance to fight a brainwashed Ryu, Sagat accepted the fight only to reignite the feeling of what it meant to be a true warrior within Ryu, who then went on to defeat Bison temporarily. After these events, Sagat continued his training to become the world's strongest fighter and wanted to achieve this accolade before he got too old. He was in search of finding the ultimate purpose of the fight after his desire to fight was reinvigorated in the tournament hosted by SIN.
It's your destiny. Soul powers nature. Fate order first!
Rose. Rose is an Italian psychic hailing from Genoa and has an access to the source of energy known as soul power. Soul power is the positive counterpart to psycho power. Using her powers, Rose had a premonition that doomsday was upon humanity, and she was certain that someone who was tremendously wicked and cruel was to blame. When she discovered that that certain individual was Bison, she made it her mission to find and stop him. Upon reaching him and confronting the mad tyrant, Rose was able to defeat Bison in combat. While she was under the impression that she had vanquished the threat of Bison from the world and rid the humans of his terrors, unbeknownst to her, Bison was still alive. She learnt of Bison's existence after consulting her tarot cards. Rose soon discovered that Bison and her souls were intertwined. This time, when she came across him, she struck him through his chest and directed her life force into his body. She believed that her plan would work, but even after fighting Bison by consuming and utilizing all of her soul power, Bison was not defeated, and Rose collapsed in front of him. Bison was later defeated by Ryu, and his soul was connected with a psycho drive. Charlie then sacrifices his life to destroy the psycho drive, but is unsuccessful in his attempt. Eventually, Bison's soul went into Rose's body, which made her a temporary host for the malevolent leader of Shadalu. On one fateful day, after the Street Fighter IV tournament, Bison was able to grab hold of Rose by ambushing her, and after knocking her unconscious, he decided to keep her alive as a pawn to satisfy his needs whenever he desired. But none other than Guy was the one who arrived on the scene to confront Bison, and after bartering a deal with the evil warlord, Guy was able to save Rose from that wretched fate. Upon regaining consciousness, Rose went back to scheming so that she could stop Bison in his tracks. Goken, the second pupil of Gautetsu, alongside Akuma, who was his younger brother and sparring partner, is now a martial arts master and teacher to Ryu and Ken. Gautetsu, the master who taught Akuma and Goken the style of the ancient assassins, took the two under his tutelage at a younger age. As their teachings went on and they became stronger and stronger, Akuma accepted the terrible essence of this style and, in a volley of attacks with murderous intent, killed Gautetsu after learning the Shun Gokutsu. Goken was disgusted to see what his brother had become and detested him for his choices in life. In the fight that ensued, Goken defeated Akuma but was unable to kill his own blood. Akuma escaped and devoted himself to searching for unrelenting power through immoral or disgusting deeds. Goken was the polar opposite and believed that their murderous style had much room for refinement. After years of training and trying to reach perfection, Goken was able to evolve the murderous and brutal style of their martial arts into a more purified and refined martial art. He went on to teach it to Ryu and Ken after accepting them in his dojo, which was situated in a remote location amidst a forest. Goken only intended to teach Ryu and Ken, but eventually Dan Hibiki also requested for him to become his master. But after learning about the fact that Dan's goal in learning his form of martial arts was vengeance, Goken rejected him from the dojo as it would have been against his morals and principles. Before the events of Street Fighter Alpha, Goken was challenged by Akuma, who had treaded back to his dojo to seek revenge. Goken suffered a defeat at the hands of his younger brother and was assumed dead. Upon finding out about his fate, Ryu starts his journey to avenge his master's death by defeating Akuma. Unbeknownst to Ryu, Goken had mastered the power of nothingness and was still alive after the fight with Akuma. Even though on the exterior he might be austere and stern, Goken enjoys competition since he is passionate about his art and is a great sport at heart. His methods involve being calm and collected, reminiscent of the practices of Zen ideals. He frequently imparts wise and perceptive words to his peers. Ingrid hails from another world. She has striking white hair and is shown to have excellent features. She despises the Satsui no Hado deeply. At first glance, she appears to be extremely young and nonchalant, but in lieu of that, she is shown to be highly perceptive and quite old. She refers to herself as the messenger from the stars. Despite appearing calm, she exhibits traits of a chilly and power-hungry disposition. She utilizes her ability to travel through time to learn more about the cosmos. It appears that she derives her strength from psychopower, but unlike Bison, her use of it is not evil. Rather, the energy she uses is transformed into something similar to Rose's soul power. She stated while having a conversation with Bison that psychopower is her energy, and Bison has taken some of it. Ingrid asserts sternly that she is the genuine possessor of what is known as psychopower. It is assumed that if she has the chance, she would be capable of halting Ryu's lunacy and rampage if he ever gives in to the darkness of the Satsui no Hado. Similarly to Rose, Ingrid also had psychic abilities, which is evident as she addressed Ryu and Rose by name in their first interactions, despite having no knowledge about them prior. Rose, on the other hand, is unable to do the same to Ingrid for unknown reasons. She declares that she owns the Psychodrive core and plans to reclaim it from Bison. It is unclear how Bison came to obtain it in the first place, even though it resembles the crests on Ingrid's head. After Bison is finally destroyed, she remarks that an average person like him would never be able to control that energy, and then leaves with the entire Psychodrive in her possession.
Believe it or not, I'm pretty busy. Get out of my face!
Cody. Amid the events of Street Fighter Alpha 3, a prison escape during a riot was foreseeable, and Cody managed to escape his captivity. After making his escape and wandering around freely, Cody ran into Rolento, but was deterred not to engage further, which disheartened Rolento as he wished for the old hero that wandered the streets confidently rather than a loner convict. Rolento even urged Cody to join his militant group, but Cody declined. Eventually, Cody crossed paths with his old friend Guy. As the two reconnected, Guy tried to help Cody get his life back on track, but Cody said that he was never a hero and simply fought people for the love of fighting, not for bringing justice. Guy and Cody engaged each other in a fight after a brief altercation in their conversation that turned into an argument. Once the two calmed down, Guy recognized and acknowledged that his old friend would have to live his own life in his own way. Guy asked Cody whether he would stay in Metro City, but Cody expressed how he wanted to travel. After having a brief moment of respect and appreciation, the two parted ways. Guy was able to bid Cody farewell with peace of mind as he was still convinced that Cody was a kind person on the inside. Cody's attitude had changed drastically from when he was a hero to now after spending a considerable amount of time inside the prison as a convict. He also appeared to have some grudges towards the outside world, lamenting the fact that although he used his skills in fighting just for the sake of the city, they still ended up putting him in jail.
Hadouken! Here I go! You can't escape!
Jen is a formidable martial artist who had trained Chun Li when she was a young girl, as he was Chun Li's father's friend. Jen is a retired assassin, and in his younger years he was extremely proficient at completing his missions. His martial arts style consists of various kung fu styles such as Crane, Tiger and Mantis, but his style is much more destructive as it focuses on destroying the vital areas of his adversaries. His delivery of blows is life-threatening and lethal, and anyone who opposes him has to always stay vigilant, otherwise Jen could easily gain the upper hand. In search of respectable foes, Jen participated in the inaugural World Warrior Tournament. He returned to the streets of China after he was disappointed about not finding anyone worthy. Soon after, he discovered that he had leukemia and it was slowly killing him. Unable to accept such an unwarrior-like fate, he ventured out and battled members of Shadalu. He was still in search of finding a worthy opponent to fight to the death, but again, he was unsuccessful in finding someone that fit the description. After learning about the accolades of Akuma and his rumored power, Jen went out to seek Akuma in hopes of confronting him in battle. Upon finding him, the two engaged each other in a fierce battle to the death, and while both traded heavy blows with each other, none were connecting as a killing strike due to them deflecting the hits. Just about. Eventually, their fight ended with Akuma realizing that his opponent was ill and sensed that he was dying slowly as his body was giving up. Upholding his morals as a warrior, Akuma stopped the fight and allowed Jin to live because he did not want an unfair fight. Although not outrightly mentioned, their actions depict how both fighters respected each other's fighting prowess. Nikali, who comes from an unknown background, is an uncanny Aztec warrior who brutalizes his opponents with a savage, visceral striking style. He seems to be lured to strong warriors and tends to despise old people. Because he is their emissary, he attempts to take the souls of fighters either for his own nourishment or to please his gods. He is particularly drawn to Ryu's Satsui no Hado, saying in his victory phrase that he must devour his endless killing intent. This implies that he enjoys consuming dark energy, which would account for his capacity to control negative energy when furious or transformed. His victory statements, which describe his opponent's attacks as pitiful or weak, reveal his conceit about his own strength and his seeming confidence in it. Nikali speaks with a noticeable stammer. He has extremely long dark hair that fades into dull red tones. His hair is pulled back into locks that are bound by gold ringlets. He also has many large scars that cross each other over his torso and arms. Nikali is cruel, evil, relentless, violent, foreboding, and savage. He exhibits Blanca's slightly chaotic nature or something that is similar to it when enraged, but he is considerably more evil and unstable. However, he has a hidden talent that allows him to seek out strong fighters so that he can commit the deed that he has been sent to perform, which is pleasing his gods through the sacrifice of others. He has two different monikers, the emissary of the gods and the soul-consuming darkness. Dalsim is an expert in the mysterious fighting style which originated from ancient India that inculcates yoga in his combat methods. He hails from Kerala, which is situated in South India. Dalsim uses his fighting prowess to battle for money to aid the underprivileged and not for personal gains. He is a resolute, modest, and diligent person who can also be solemn and uncompromising when the situation demands it. Dalsim was always in conflict with his ideals and questioned what good his use of powers to compete in violent fights was bringing. His wife Sally consoled him and showed how, through his efforts, he was able to raise enough money for his village to be supplied with food, shelter, and medicine. Eventually, due to his capabilities as a fighter, he was targeted by the Shadalu and Kami was sent to assassinate him. But after the two shared a couple of words, Dalsim was able to show Kami the errors in her ways. Believing strongly in his pacifist ways, Dalsim wanted to give up on fighting and wanted to live peacefully, but he was seen in action whenever it was needed so that he could help the people who were helpless to fend for themselves. Dalsim had to eventually engage in battle once more when SIN constructed a dam upstream close to his village which stopped their natural water supply. He is unsure whether he wants to use his powers for such purposes but believes it is for the betterment of the village and continues. After SIN's defeat, the dam is destroyed and Dalsim is successful in bringing the water back to his village. He is shown to be a strong believer in the fact that even though the wretchedness of the human heart will never be vanquished, so will the goodness in mankind's heart forever cherish. Charlie Nash. Gill learned the majority of his signature maneuvers from Charlie, who was his senior officer in the US Air Force. Charlie, a secret elite military squad member, and Gill co-piloted a special operation into Thailand. However, their plan went awry and both of them were taken as prisoners. They were able to flee, but Charlie was certain that the enemy had inside knowledge from a member of the American military and was driven to find out who was responsible for the incident in Thailand. When Charlie runs into Rolento, he asks what Charlie's plans are. Rolento decides to intervene when Charlie brings up Shadaloo. After tracking Bison down in Brazil, Charlie meets him next to a river. After the fight, Charlie questions Bison so that he can grab intel from him. Before he could respond, Charlie's supposed backup chopper shot him in the back, causing him to plummet over the waterfall. In Bison's eyes, Charlie poses no threat to him. Therefore, he doesn't check to see whether he's still alive. Charlie's storyline is a bit convoluted, and it is unclear what is canon and what is not. In his what-if scenarios, Charlie is shown to be alive and then subsequently destroys Shadaloo's secret base. In another storyline, it is shown how Charlie had gone AWOL, but in reality, he was undercover to gather intel on Shadaloo's operations. Eventually, he is shown to team up with Gill, who was initially sent to kill him, and Chun Li against Bison. After Ryu temporarily defeats Bison, Charlie is last seen sacrificing his life in order to destroy the psychodrive, but ultimately failing to do so. Charlie has a strong sense of justice and is a calm, collected fighter, sometimes to a fault. Like his companion Gill, Charlie fights crime, but he does it more out of justice than out of retaliation. Despite this, he occasionally makes poor decisions. While he generally conducts himself professionally, there are moments when he loses control of his emotions.
You can't escape!
Chun Li. Chun Li joined Interpol after Bison killed her father in order to have the tools necessary to track him down and prosecute him. Jen, her father's old friend and a martial arts instructor, provides her with some intel on who could have murdered her father. She starts looking into the enigmatic criminal organization Shadaloo and finally encounters M. Bison. He strikes her and soon subdues her while she demands he tell her everything he knew about what transpired between him and her father. He threatens to murder her if she fights him once more before taking off on his airship. On that day, Chun Li vowed to exact her revenge on Bison while grieving. Eventually, Chun Li joins in her mission with the US Air Force members Charlie, Nash and Gill. All of them had the same motive, which was to track and shut down the entire crime organization Shadaloo. After they were able to locate their base, she realized that Bison had swindled the armies not to bomb the Shadaloo base. With the responsibility to eradicate their base on the three fighters, Chun Li, Charlie and Gill proceeded to plant the bombs required to blow the base up. Upon exiting, Gill tells Li that Charlie commanded them to gain as much distance as possible. Soon the whole empire is covered with explosions and Charlie is nowhere to be found after his heroic sacrifice. As some time passes, after Chun Li's retirement, she is informed how the Shadaloo might be forming again. And to put a stop to their malevolent deeds, Li teams up with Cammy and her old friend Gill. Eventually, after overcoming various obstacles during her mission and also barely avoiding death, she shares a sentimental conversation with Gill, where she mentions how she is also fighting for herself and not just to avenge her father, and how she will continue to do police work in the name of justice. Guy and his training companion Cody are the embodiment of being a street fighter and have battled countless enemies to fight Mad Gear and also rescue Jessica, Cody's girlfriend. After his accolades, Guy continued his training and eventually Zeiku, the Grandmaster of the Bushin-Ryu style, considered Guy to be a worthy successor of his martial arts. After an honorary battle between the two, in which Guy was triumphant, he successfully became the 39th heir of the Bushin-Ryu art. In their final interactions, Zeiku warned Guy of the corruption that threatens the world. Guy soon realizes that the corrupted force Zeiku was mentioning was the Shadaloo organization. During his mission, Guy encountered Rose and instinctively aimed to protect her. But Rose refused. Guy even comes across his old friend Cody, who seems to be a shell of the hero he used to be before. As their reunion turns into an altercation, they spar and eventually calmer heads prevail. It becomes evident to Guy that Cody never fought for bringing justice to criminals. Rather, he fought for his love for fighting. Soon, Guy accepts that Cody has to live his own life and make his own decisions before the two bid farewell to each other. Guy is still at peace, knowing that Cody is a kind person at heart. Guy has a keen mind, a noble character, and a solid sense of justice. He is quiet and restrained. His disposition In his early Street Fighter appearances was exceptionally reserved. However, his aloofness has given way to friendliness in more recent representations. He is a serious warrior who performs his duties as a ninja with utmost professionalism and perfection. The only emotion that occasionally shines out on his stern face is occasional astonishment, like when he learnt what had become of Cody.
Predictable! Time to end this! Fire!
Gill is one of the protagonistic forces of the Street Fighter franchise. Pure at heart and unrelenting at completing his missions, Gill is an extremely tough fighter. He is part of the United States Air Force, where one of his superior officers was Charlie Nash. Gill learned a lot from Charlie and adopted his learning to inculcate Charlie's fighting style into his arsenal. Gill's lifelong mission has been to investigate and terminate Shadaloo for all of the crimes that they have committed. On his mission, he meets up with Interpol agent Chun Li, who aids him on his mission further. Eventually, Gill is able to locate Charlie and the two team up once more in their mission against Shadaloo. After the Air Force is tricked into not bombing the Shadaloo base, Gill, Charlie and Chun Li take it upon themselves to plant explosives and turn the base into rubble. After Ryu's final battle with Bison temporarily ended, Charlie ordered Gill to evacuate the area and leave him behind. Charlie sacrificed his life to eradicate the psycho drive so that Bison would not wreak havoc again. Unfortunately, Charlie was unsuccessful and Gill blamed his best friend's death on Bison. As Bison holds the second World Warrior Tournament, Gill enters and takes the bait while Bison plans to make him suffer. Upon their confrontation, Gill is able to overpower Bison but refuses to kill him because he does not want to stoop to the same level as Bison. Gill's wife and son, who were angered towards him for choosing his mission and his revenge before them, were ready to forgive him on the condition that he would return home. Within a split second, Gill agreed to the condition and was overjoyed to be reunited with his family. Eventually, Gill is sent back on a mission to stop SIN, where he teams up with Abel and reunites with Chun Li. He constantly searches for remnants or clues of his old friend Charlie. After SIN is successfully destroyed, Gill comes back to Charlie's grave, where he remarks how he is aware that Shadaloo will make a comeback, and he will be prepared for it.
You can't escape!
Alex is a resident of Manhattan City. He is an orphan and is unaware of how his biological parents were. He was adopted at a young age by Tom, who was a friend of Alex's father. He lives with Tom, Tom's 4-year-old daughter Patricia, and Pauline, Alex's own daughter. Tom reared him like he was his own son and even trained him at his gym. Alex showed great promise as a young fighter, and with time his fighting prowess grew larger and he became a powerhouse of a wrestler. He showed remarkable progress in very little time and was extremely talented. For a guy his size, Alex is highly technical, agile, and quick with his mind. Alex eventually enlisted in the military and developed a reputation for being a skilled street fighter. Upon his return from duty, Alex learned that Tom had been severely injured and overcome by a guy by the name of Gill, who wanted to take Tom into his army of goons, and upon refusal, Gill brutalized Tom to send a message to Alex in which he threatened Alex's loved ones if he did not submit himself to them and joined their army. Despite being one of the strongest fighters in the tournament organized by Gill, Alex was captured by his forces and was on the cusp of becoming one of the experimental super soldiers when an undercover Chun Li saved him from this fate. Upon returning home finally after his escapades and seeing Tom and Pauline, Alex is happy to see that they are safe and healthy. Alex eventually ventured out into the world in search of other strong fighters, and so he competed in a multitude of tournaments to prove himself. Yurien. The parents of Yurien and Gill had been long-time Illuminati members. The boys were considered prospective cult president contenders from around the time when they were only 6 years old. Gill's younger brother Yurien has long harbored resentment for him due to their physical differences, which led Yurien to have an inferiority complex. Gill was elected to become the president of the Illuminati at the age of 22, owing to his outstanding physical characteristics and personality. By utilizing his right to challenge Gill for his position, Yurien attempted to seize control of the Illuminati organization. He eventually succeeded and was elected the organization's president, but he soon discovered that his brother, who had been given a promotion, was now the emperor, which was disastrous for him. Yurien intends to depose Gill by using the G project to build his own army. Due to Yurien's criminal ways in which he attempts to experiment on humans in search of a perfect human super soldier, after Chun Li abducted one of the kids she cared for, he returns to the battleground. The easiest way to sum up Yurien's personality is to call it authoritarian and totalitarian. Additionally, Yurien disavows all moral qualities and components of leadership, considering them to be useless, and instead uses his rule to instill fear and servitude, much like a tyrannical, repressive, totalitarian, and dominating tyrant. In addition, it is clear that Yurien has a deep-seated mistrust and suspicion of everyone except himself. He is constantly on the lookout for disobedience and betrayal of both friends and foes, possibly as a result of his tyrannical and domineering behavior and a natural fear that someone is attempting to kill him in retaliation.
Let's see you beat this! Tiger!
Conclusion. Now that you've gone through our list of 20 immensely powerful Street Fighter characters, where we explored their backstories, we are sure that you might have gained a new sense of admiration for the series that we share. The roster of this fighting game franchise is unlike any other. Its characters range from superhuman beings capable of shattering lands with a punch, to characters that are solely there for comic relief. Capcom has struck a genuine balance between their humorous and stoic characters, which is as perfect as it gets for their audience. Our love for these Street Fighter characters will never dwindle, as they will remain iconic for years to come. If this trip down memory lane from 1987 to 2022 has been invigorating for you, stop doubting if you can begin another run of these classics and finish it without breaking your schedule, because surely you can. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.